Today we're going to be talking about reflections and dilations. A reflection is flipping a geometric figure over a specific axis. The figure will either be reflected across the x or y axes. Reflections are a mirror image of each other. How do I reflect a figure? Okay, so step one, you need to reflect a figure by counting how many units each point is away from the axis of symmetry. Remember, your axis of symmetry is going to be either your x or your y axes. Step two is make a new point an equal distance on the opposite side of the axes and repeat this process for each point. So for example, reflect this over both the x-axis and the y-axis. So let's go through and look at points A, B, C, and D and write down the original coordinates in your grid. So for example, A is at -1, 1, B, -2, -3, C, -1, -5, D, -3, -3. If I were to reflect this over the x-axis, I'm going to take my highlighter, I'm going to highlight my x-axis. So now I count. A is here. I'm going to make one jump and I'm on the x-axis. So then I'm going to go that same distance above the x-axis. So one jump. So this is A prime. B prime. If I look at my axis of symmetry, it is 1, 2, 3 units below the axis of symmetry. So that means I'm going to be 1, 2, 3 units above the axis of symmetry, and that is B prime. C prime is 5 units below, so that means it is now going to be 5 units above the axis of symmetry. D prime is 3 units below the axis of symmetry, so now it's going to be 3 units above the axis of symmetry. Redraw your figure and write your points. So A prime is now -1, 1. B prime is now -2, +3. C prime is -1, +5. And D prime is -3, +3. So the change that you notice when you flip it over the x-axis is actually that the x stays the same, but your y value takes the opposite sign. Okay, now let's try flipping it over the y-axis. So again, I'm going to draw my axis of symmetry. Is the y-axis. And let's go back to the original figure and count. A is one jump from the axis of symmetry from the left, so then A prime with 2 apostrophes is going to be one jump to the right. So let's do the same thing. B is 2 units to the left of the axis of symmetry, so now it's going to be 2 units to the right. C is 1 unit to the left, so then C prime is going to be 1 unit to the right. D is 3 units to the left, so now it's going to be 3 units to the right. Draw your figure and let's write your new coordinate points. So A is going to be 1, -1. B is going to be 2, -3. C is going to be 1, -5. And D is going to be 3, -3. So you notice when you flip it over the y-axis that actually your x value has the opposite sign. Turn the page. I want you to pause the video and try both flipping this figure over the x-axis and then try flipping the figure over the y-axis. Ask your teacher if you have any questions. Now let's flip a few pages until you get to dilation. Dilation is a transformation where the size of the figure is multiplied by a scale factor. A scale factor greater than 1 will result in a larger figure. So for example, if you multiply it by 2 or 3 or 4. But a scale factor less than 1, so a fraction, will result in a smaller figure. So example, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4. To dilate a figure, you want to multiply each number in the ordered pair by the scale factor. For example, -4, 6 times a scale factor of 1/2 becomes -2, 3. Because if you say -4 times 1/2, remember multiplying fractions, put a 1 under the 4 and go straight across. -4 times 1 is -4. 1 times 2 is 2. When you simplify this, you get -2. 6 times 1/2, which is 6 over 2, is 3. Where 2, -1 as a coordinate point times a scale factor of 2 becomes 4, -2. You have doubled each value. 2 times 2 is 4, -1 times 2 is -2. So let's dilate this figure by a scale factor of 2. So start by writing down your original values. R is at -2, 1. S is at -3, 0. T is at -3, 2. U is at -1, 2. V is at -1, 0. So go through and multiply each of these values by a scale factor of 2. Is this what you got when you multiplied each figure, each letter, by 2? So now let's go ahead and graph these points. So R prime is going to be at -4, 2. S is going to be at -6, 0. Remember, anything that you multiply by 0 is 0. T is going to be at -6, 4. U is going to be at -2, 4. V will be at -2, 0. Okay, and these are all primes because you've changed your figure. And you notice that your figure has dilated by a scale factor of 2. In other words, it has grown double the size. Let's turn the page. So now I want you to pause the video, try multiplying this figure on the left by a scale factor of 2, and then the figure on the right, I want you to multiply by a scale factor of 1/2. So the figure on your left should grow, the figure on your right should actually get smaller. Check your answers with the following problems. So you notice that the figure on the left, it grew because it was multiplied by a dilation, a scale factor of larger than 1, but the figure on the right got smaller because it was multiplied by a scale factor that was less than 1. So if you multiply by a whole number, you're going to get the image to be larger. If you multiply by a fraction, you'll get the image to be smaller.